Oh, I think we're live. Hopefully we've got a few people going to join us today. Hopefully we can all see us well. A little bit chilly outside. I'm Simone Austin and I'm a dietitian, and we're going to chat to you very shortly about food and mood. And you can put comments and questions and things in the chat box, and we'll all be able to join in. Okay, so we'll just be ready to go in just a few seconds to see if we've got some people joining us. Let's see who we've got. Let's check out the chat box. See who we've got online. Not sure if I'm checking this chat box properly. No new messages. Who's joining us online? Who's going to pop up for me? In the winter time, we definitely want to talk about food and how it affects our mood. Let's see what we've got. Okay, we seem to have disappeared. It says we're live, got the camera. Can anyone see me out there? Let's check with Barbara. It says the camera's going. I can see myself down the bottom. It says live. Can you see me? Yep, you're live. Susie Shaw's telling me I'm live. We're good. Beautiful. Good. Glad I can see you. Yay. Yay. Technology's working. Okay, we're going to get started and chat about food and mood. But I'm going to start with my first acknowledgement to country. I'm just going to make sure that everyone's got that in there as well. So I'm going to make sure that that has sent. So hopefully that's gone in. All right. I acknowledge the Wurundjeri Wurrung people as the traditional custodians of the lands and waterways in the area, now known as Moreland, and pay respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, as well as to all First Nations communities who significantly contribute to the life of the area. So welcome everyone today on a bit of a cold Melbourne day. I know for some of us, we're probably back down in lockdown in the city of Moreland. I know that I am. So there's no more important time than to talk about how food can help our mood. So I'm an accredited practicing dietitian. I'm Simone Austin. I'm also an advanced sports dietitian. I've lived in the Moreland area for about 24 years, about half of my life. I've worked in sport, but I also have worked in general practice and doctor's clinic around here in Moreland for 25 years. I've worked in community health. I work at Hawthorn Football Club for the last 13 years until we've gone down and we've all lost our positions there at the moment, but hope to be back. I work at our Dietitians Association of Australia. I do some media work and I work for a few food companies as well. Also do some blog writing, so you can check out my blog at my website, which is just simoneaustin.com.au. And if any of you been to the library, I'm an author, so I've got my book, Eat Like an Athlete. You can always get it from the books to your door system that the Moreland Library run. So lots of different nutrition experience, and I'm really happy to answer any questions that I see might come up in the chat box. I'll have a talk to you about the things I want to chat about, but as I said, ask questions as we go, and I'm happy to answer them at the time we've got, which is between now and plenty of time, 1 o'clock. If you get peckish, grab some healthy food and you can eat it as we go. So why food and mood? Well, we can use food to help us with our mood. Food is a tool that we've all got available to us to help us with our health and our well-being. And as I would talk about with athletes, our performance. But it's not just for athletes. We can all use nutrition for our life performance, no matter what we're doing. So today, when there's no guilt, there's no diets, there's all about what we can eat to help with our mood. So one of the first things I want you to think about is why you choose what you do to eat. So think about maybe what you had for breakfast this morning. Did you choose it because that's what was in the fridge, was available, was in the cupboard? Someone else, if you're lucky, made it for you. Maybe it's because what you like the taste of as well. Or is it winter and it makes you feel warm? Or it's just what you were in the mood for? Hopefully it was also because it's what you think is nutritious and it's going to be good for your body. But there's so many different reasons we choose the food we do. And it's not always about what's nourishing. So we have to those things meet together about what we feel like in our mood, what's available, but also nutrition. And if we pick the right foods, it actually can help improve our mood. And then we're more likely to pick those nutritious, nourishing foods. Whereas if we're picking foods that are particularly high in sugar, very highly processed, maybe high in poor quality fats or lots of alcohol, that can negatively impact our mood, make us feel tired, more sluggish, can obviously increase your risk of depression. And then it goes in a bit of a vicious cycle because you're more likely to choose those foods to give you a pick-me-up or think that they're going to give you a pick-me-up. And then it's going to just make it worse and we go round and round in circles. And there's been some studies, quite local ones, done at Deakin Uni in Geelong. One of them's called the SMILES trial. And the SMILES trial looked at a Mediterranean style diet and how that seems to improve people who suffer with depression or just in general our mood. Because we don't always necessarily have clinical depression when we feel low or feel a bit sad, but our food can help it, particularly long term. And the people in the study that were eating that Mediterranean style diet, by the time they'd finished the study and they were using their special standard research type tools that measure what your mood's like, they actually improved and reduced their depression. So these people had depression and they reduced that. And the things in the Mediterranean style diet that are particularly good are things like extra virgin olive oil. So don't be afraid of fat. You can liberally put that extra virgin olive oil over your veggies, add it on top of your potatoes, dip your bread in that. Use it in your cooking. Doesn't matter what you're cooking, you can use the olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. And this has got the benefit of antioxidants and what we call phytochemicals. So they're natural chemicals that are found in foods, particularly plant foods. And what they do is they act as an antioxidant which helps protect our cells, but some of them aren't absorbed in our gut and they end up in the large part of your intestines, the lower part, and your gut bacteria ferment them. And this produces good gases. Yes, some of the gases you produce are good despite your partner or someone not thinking they are. And some of those gases actually pass as compounds into the bloodstream and they signal different parts of our body, including our brain. So it can have a positive effect on our brain and our mood. Can also go to different parts of our body, to organs that produce hormones, like your happy hormones, like serotonin. So the olive oil is helpful for that reason. Also, they're part of the Mediterranean diet is the legumes and lentils. And as Australians, we don't eat anywhere near enough of those. And they've got lots of fibre in them, which again, some of that feeds our good gut bacteria. The gut bacteria ferment them, produce it into the gases, they go through into your bloodstream, go to all the different parts of your brain and your body to help keep us well, but including your mood. So get the legumes and lentils in, put them in your soup, cook them up to make your own homemade baked beans, or get them out of the can. Maybe some hummus dip, put them into casseroles, mush them up and make I put them into homemade hamburgers. I posted an Instagram post yesterday of my homemade hamburger where I mushed up the kidney beans in the food processor and put them into the hamburger mince. So you're eating them without really even noticing. But you can also roast them. Roasted chickpeas, a little bit of vinegar, a little bit of salt, putting some herbs on them in the oven. So there's lots of ways we can get legumes and lentils in, which are a big feature of the Mediterranean style diet. The other part of the Mediterranean diet is lots of veggies. So how do we make them taste good like they do? We use herbs, spices, olive oils, tomato, roasting them, because the natural sugars then in your vegetables make it sweet and tasty. There's no point boiling them to death so that they just taste boring. The only way you can eat lots of veggies is if they taste good. So olive oil is a dressing on salads and things. So that fiber also in those vegetables go to that part of your gut bacteria and they ferment them and feed them. The same process, whether it be the polyphenols and the phytonutrients in the olive oil, whether it be the fiber in your legumes and lentils, or the same in your fruits and veggies. All have the same process. The common denominator is they're feeding our good gut bacteria. And more good gut bacteria we know helps improve our mood as well as our health. So tick the Mediterranean style diet. If that's not your way to go, having plenty of vegetables is. So I want you to picture your plate, your dinner plate. And I want you to draw a line across it in half and put 2 fists on it. And 2 fists, that means half of your plate or 2 fists worth is going to be vegetables. 1 fist or a quarter, so draw a line down that, then the other half, divide that into quarters, is going to be your protein, and the other quarter is going to be your carbohydrate. And that's about how we want our meal to look. And that way we're getting mostly vegetables, so it'll get the phytonutrients and the fibers, whether it be the Mediterranean style diet or any other style diet, the feature still needs to be the veggies for the fiber, for the vitamins and the minerals that are in there. Not only do they feed our good gut bacteria, but they give us the vitamins and minerals that our body needs for our overall health. Now, tell me, how do you feel when you've got a cold? You can type it in the chat box if you like. You feel tired, you feel sluggish, you feel like, oh, I don't want to do anything. So if you're getting sick more often, your mood is obviously not good. So we want to make sure that we are not getting sick to also improve our mood. So vitamin A, vitamin C in particular, those ones, but also zinc and iron, all those antioxidants in there. We need all of those, including B group vitamins as well. We need those for our immune system. So where do we get most of those? Goes back to the vegetables and the fruits, but also whole grains, legumes and lentils. So to improve our mood, we need to feed our gut bacteria, but we also have to prevent ourselves from getting sick. Because if we're sick, we're not actually going to feel too good. And then we often go for the quick fix foods because we feel sluggish and tired. And we think something like grabbing the lollies or a glass of fruit juice or something that's high in sugar is going to fix that. But we don't. We want to eat your fruit, not so much drink too much of your juice to get your vitamin A. And if we go back to that plate, we've got the half plate of veggies, and then we need our protein and we need our carbs. And our protein is very important for our mood as well, because protein is needed for every single cell in your body. That's how the cell walls, they must have some protein in there. They're also responsible for making hormones, or part of your hormones. So happy hormones are needed. You need your hormones to fight infection and to keep your energy up, like your thyroid hormones, or to get sugar into your bloodstream, like your insulin. So protein is also important. But it doesn't mean you need to go and load up on protein. About the fist size for most people is enough. The other fist is my carbs. Please don't cut out carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are really important. So we are people at low carb diets and things, We certainly want to remove the sugary type carbs in our diet, ultra processed foods like cakes and biscuits and things. We want to keep that low. But we want to be embracing all the different types of carbs we have, whether it be whole grain breads, brown rices, wholemeal pastas, or have you seen some of the legume type pastas that are out there now? You can certainly be including those in your diet too. I'm just checking if there's any questions. No questions yet, but please throw me some. Happy to answer them as we go. Just drop them in the chat box and I'm happy to get to that. Other grains you might have seen around now like quinoa, freekeh, and freekeh is just immature or green wheat that hasn't grown into how we normally harvest it, but it's really got lots of good antioxidants and vitamins and minerals in there. Also what we call the pseudo grains, like the seeds, like chia seeds. You might be having teff if you haven't seen that yet, or barley. Come on, we all need to get some barley in there because our growers need to sell their barley. So if we can get lots of different grains at around the size of our fist, you're going to get iron and zinc, some carbohydrate for energy, and you're also going to get fiber that's going to go back down to feed that gut bacteria again. And you can see I keep coming back to that gut bacteria because 70% of our immune system is actually found in our gut. So we need to be really looking after it. And also the serotonin, which happens to make you feel happy, some of that is triggered by what's happening with those gases that are produced that then go to our brain. So have people heard about the gut-brain axis? Can anyone give me a thumbs up or a yes or a no in the chat box about gut-brain axis? Have you guys heard about that? Okay, I hope you might chat. Okay, I've got a question come up there. I'll get to that one. So the gut-brain axis, so your brain and your gut are talking to each other. Really important. That gut feeling that we talk about, definitely what we're eating is going to affect our mood. So if you overeat, it will come back to make you feel tired and sluggish and affect your mood as well. So it's really important. Now, someone's asked me about what about ham, bacon, and corned beef? Are these foods high in salt? Absolutely are. So when I'm talking about protein and eating, we certainly can be eating some of those processed type meats, but we don't want to be eating too much of them. So they're okay for protein, but too much salt, we're learning, can actually affect your immune system adversely. So the salt can block some of the immune system functions that are there to fight your when the bacteria and the viruses and things get in. So it's not just about salt and blood pressure, but also salt in our immune system can be an issue too. I'm just sorry, we're getting all right. So someone here's asked me that they haven't heard about the gut-brain axis. Tell us more. So when I'm talking about that gut-brain axis, we're definitely talking about how your gut talks to your brain a bit like a freeway. So what we don't want is lots of information going back and forth too much. That's when you can get that nervous or too anxious. And that's why people do things like meditation and mindfulness, really trying to slow that freeway of information going back and forth. And people with irritable bowel syndrome, often that's linked to the gut and the brain doing way too much talking. So people with irritable bowel syndrome, it often gets worse. If anyone's experienced it, let me know. It gets worse when you're stressed. And it gets worse when you're anxious. Has anyone ever felt, when you get butterflies in your stomach, when you're nervous about doing something? That's that gut and the brain. It's the vagus nerve, and it's really talking to each other, but there's too much of it going on, and we need to quieten it down. And one of the ways we can do that is actually just deep breaths. About 5 or so deep breaths. That can really help quieten that talking go down and can help people with irritable bowel syndrome. So irritable bowel syndrome is often gassy, bloating, just feeling pain and squelching and things in your stomach. And there's even some research to show that certain hypnotherapy can help with things like the FODMAP diet and irritable bowel syndrome. And FODMAP stands for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. just fancy words about carbohydrates. And some of those are found in different fruits and vegetables and legumes and lentils. And it's when some of those fibers go that I talked about that's good for you. But when you have too many of them, they actually ferment and make the gas, and that can give people pain. So yeah, someone's just said anxiety is the worst for IBS. It absolutely is. So we have to quieten it down. And then when you produce those gases from the fermenting, sometimes that means the stomach is pushing against part of the outer layer, and that's what causes the pain. So for those people that get those IBS bloating symptoms, they might need to reduce having some of those fibers that I said are good for us, like legumes and lentils. So it doesn't mean cut them out though. What it means is having how much you can tolerate. So a small dose might be a quarter of a cup of kidney beans in your chili con carne. It might be a little bit of hummus dip. It might be cooking your soup and putting in just a little bit of split peas or lentils to start with. And then you can gradually build up to it so it's not too much. Because the gases are good, but they can also give us too much pain. So please, if you've heard of the FODMAP diet, it's not about cutting out all those foods. We really need those fibers for our good mood food balance, but we just don't want too much of that fiber all at once. It can give us a problem. And someone's just told me that the Melbourne Museum had the great exhibition about the gut, and I think it's still on. And it really is good, where it shows you all about the digestion and the fermentation and the gut microbes and how we really need them, are important. Yeah, it was really good. If you haven't seen it, I think the museum's still closed, but when it's open again, it's a really good one to get to. I'm just going to check what other people have said here. So we've got, can meditation help? Yeah, so meditation definitely is good for that gut and brain chatting to each other all the time and just quietening it and making sure that the vagus nerve is not in overdrive. So it could be just the 5 deep breaths. It could be just closing your eyes for a few seconds, or it could be right up to a half an hour meditation. Whatever suits you, but just quietening and relaxing can really help with that. So when I'm talking about the FODMAP, people might have seen that Monash Uni actually developed the FODMAP diet. And so by going on where you remove some of those foods that ferment and cause the gases, you can really settle it down in your gut so that that bloating and gassy part is not happening. And then you reintroduce some of those foods until you find your tolerance level. If you're needing to do that, I suggest that you talk to an accredited practicing dietitian to help you through that elimination and reintroduction phase, because it's really important that you do reintroduce. I've got a question about a medication as well. You can take some medications to help with irritable bowel syndrome, but I really suggest that you look at dietary things first and trying to have a diet that's moderate in fiber and not too much all at once. It is a stage-by-stage process. So the next bit, if I think about food and mood, who turns to having a big piece of cake when they come home, or they've been at the end of the day at work? It could be when you're working from home or you're coming home from work and they grab a glass of alcohol. It's Dry July, by the way. So if anyone's thinking about taking up Dry July, might be a good one to try. But we use alcohol as a relaxant because at that time it does. It suppresses you. It gives you that feeling of relaxation. The issue is though, alcohol is a depressant. So what it does is it reduces those happy hormones and it adversely can affect your testosterone. Now, both males and females have testosterone, and it's really important for our energy levels. In fact, a lot of women who just feel consistently tired, it can be low iron, but it can also be low testosterone levels. And drinking alcohol can reduce your testosterone levels further. And I know working with my athletes, the elite athletes, I've worked at the Australian cricket team and Melbourne Storm and at Hawthorn for 13 years. Over the break, I really talk to athletes about, I know this is your break and you want to have a few drinks, but be really careful because you haven't got your exercise anymore that really stimulates those happy hormones, those endorphins, and then you put alcohol on top of that, you're really likely to come crashing down. So be very careful about using alcohol as a pick-me-up, because it's very short-lived and then you come crashing down. A glass is okay, but if you're having lots and you're using it all the time, it's not going to be a long-term fix your mood. What's going to help is fixing the gut bacteria. So just be really cautious of if you're really getting into a habit of using alcohol as a pick-me-up. The same with sugary foods. Yes, it gives you that pick-me-up at the time because you associate, you like eating that food, and that's okay. But watch the quantities that you're having, because too many of them are going to be adverse effects on your health and on your gut bacteria. And then in the long term, that's going to make you not feel as good in terms of your mood. So you feel like that cake or that dark chocolate or any chocolate or whatever it is, go for it, but have a small amount, really enjoy it and savor it. Have no guilt, because that's not going to help your mood. There's no point eating this food because you want to pick up your mood and then it's making you feel guilty, so you've just blown it. So when you choose to have it, just ask yourself, it's called eating with awareness. Ask yourself the question, do I want this food now? Is it actually going to make me feel better? And sometimes by just asking that and giving yourself permission, you are allowed to eat the food, but it's not necessarily going to make you feel better. So I think it's important to give yourself the permission, and you're probably less likely to have it. But if you do want it, eat it and enjoy it, that piece. But by eating it slowly and enjoying it, you're probably not likely to go back for a second or eat the whole block of chocolate or eat the whole packet of biscuits, because there's no guilt and you've taken your time and you're allowed to. And that's a really important one with mood, because often it's the time when you're just going to binge and then you're going to feel 10 times worse after, and then you're going to do it again, and we go around and round in circles. So I find with my clients, by just removing the guilt, all foods are allowed, but stopping to ask yourself, do I feel like that now? Or would I be better to nourish myself with a piece of, and making myself a good sandwich with some cheese and tomato and capsicums and good things like that, a bowl of soup, a piece of fruit, some yogurt, a handful of nuts? Will that make me feel better at the time? And I can have that other snack food later if I still want it. Now, so really eating with awareness, and my book talks a lot about that, because I think it's really important about that connection with mood and food and eating with awareness with no guilt. Coffee. Someone's asked about coffee. Definitely allowed to enjoy your coffee. And caffeine does make you more alert. There are plenty of studies to show that caffeine will increase alertness, but it gets to a point where that stops. So that benefit stops. And for all of us, it's a bit different, because we have a gene that controls how quickly we metabolize caffeine. So for some of us, when we are slow metabolizers of caffeine, having a few cups will actually sort of send us all a bit over the edge and be a bit jittery, and so that's not so good. For some people, they're quite quick at metabolizing caffeine, and having 3 cups a day is not going to make any difference. So you need to find your level, but it is perfectly safe health-wise to have a cup or 2 of coffee a day, and it can give that mental alertness. And it's why athletes will sometimes use it, particularly if they're looking for something when they're getting fatigued and tired, like in a triathlon or a real endurance type event. They'll have some caffeine. Green tea, someone's asked about that. Remember that green tea still has caffeine, so it's perfectly okay to drink it. But a cup of green tea just before bed, if you find that caffeine interferes with your sleep, might not be the best thing. You might be wanting to go for a herbal tea instead. And that's a really important one with mood, is that if you're eating anything that is going to affect your sleep, then that's not great. And with the athletes I work with, sleep is monitored so carefully. Sleep is so important for your health. My kids, I've got 2 kids, they're a bit older now, nearly 21 and 16. But I'm always on to them about and needing enough sleep for your mood. Because if you don't get enough sleep and you're tired, you're going to look for foods like more caffeine, alcohol, sugary foods to give you that pick-me-up. And then that's going to negatively affect your mood again. So caffeine's okay, but if it affects your sleep, no. And try not to eat a whole heavy amount of food before bed. Because if you do, it will interfere with your sleep. Because to go to sleep, your body likes to reduce its core body temperature slightly. And if we're digesting food, we've got all that blood supply coming to our stomach to do that, your body's much less likely to go to sleep because it's in an active state rather than a shutdown. And it's good to not eat for a few hours before you go to bed, because your body, your gut, likes some gut rest. And if you think of a street cleaner, you know, they look like the garbage truck, but they've got the little brushes to clean the gutters in the street. Your gut has something like that, and it's called a motility complex, where when everything's slowed down, it likes to do this big clean. And if you've eaten just before bedtime, your gut's not at rest and it can't do this big clean. Sort of like a spring clean, but it likes to do it regularly. And that's really important for your gut and your gut health, which then links back to your mood. So give your body some gut rest. I'm not suggesting you have to fast for 20 hours and 16 hours, but about 12 hours of gut rest is probably a good time that your body can really clean out the gut and give it that resting period. So I do think that's quite important and links back to your mood. I'm just going to check on here if we've got any other questions before I go on to my next bits. So I've got a little bit mixed up here. If anyone's chomping into their lunch right now, have a look and see if you've got a big variety of salads or vegetables. Does it look like a rainbow? Because we want to eat like a rainbow. If we eat lots of different colors of fruits and vegetables, then we're automatically going to get a big range of vitamins and minerals. Because did you know that it's actually the vitamins and minerals that give most of the color to our food? So vitamin A foods or beta carotene tend to be red or orange. If we look at green things, they tend to be higher in folate. So it's really important to have a great variety of food, that variety of coloured foods. And 93% of Australians don't eat the recommended 5 serves of veggies a day. 93% of us, that's nearly all of us. A serve is a cup of salad or half a cup of cooked vegetables, or legumes also count. So to get 5 in a day, probably not all going to happen at the end of the day at dinner time. So what we want to do is get some in at each meal and maybe snacks. So let's take brekkie. Breakfast time, we might have some eggs. Rather than just eggs on toast, we need eggs, maybe with spinach, tomato, mushrooms, capsicum, corn, kale, whatever you like, can all be thrown in the pan together. If you're having toast, it could be avocado and tomato on toast rather than just putting a jam or a spread. If you are into cereal, you might not get your veggies in, but you could get grains and seeds in by adding some extra grains and seeds to the breakfast. Or you could have your cereal, but you might make a smoothie, a green-based type smoothie to go with your brekkie maybe. Lunchtime, I want a salad sandwich this high. I've got some pictures of my hamburger I did yesterday on my Instagram, and you'll see it's this high, packed with veggies. That's what we want. Or a veggie soup. Or if you've got leftover from the night before, make sure it's not just the meat and the pasta or the rice or the potato bit. Make sure you've got plenty of the veggies too. Curries, stir fries, frittatas, zucchini slices, those sort of things are perfect for lunchtime. Afternoon, you might want to have some cheese. Rather than always cheese and crackers, what about cheese, but having some capsicum, cherry tomatoes, olives, sun-dried tomatoes, capsicums, pickled onions, a little bit of an anti-pasta type dish for your afternoon snack rather than grabbing for the sweet things. And then at dinner, come back to those 2/5 I said, or half the plate. Lots of veggies, not always meat being the feature. Meatless Monday is a good one to do. Or having this small meat, about the palm of your hand, but then getting all the veggies in too. My family love it for roast veggies. So I'll just get my trays and I'll put in capsicum, sweet potato, carrots, pumpkin, zucchini, sometimes eggplant. And the other day, someone gave me the tip of on your cauliflower, now you've got the green leaves up the side, cut those off, put on extra virgin olive oil, a few herbs, and roast those as well. And they come out a bit like if you've ever had kale chips. They come out like those, but nicer. Doesn't take long at all. And with the olive oil just makes a little bit of sugar that's in the green leafy part just really caramelize and taste delicious. So there's no wastage either. So let me know. You can contact me on social media. Let me know if you try those and like it, because I found them delicious. Broccolini as well, you can throw in there too. So getting all those veggies in your day. Can I eat carbs is one that I'm always asked. I spoke to you a little bit about them earlier. Absolutely, the quarter of amount. Carbs are important for our brain because our brain runs on glucose. Okay, so we need to have some carbs in there for what our brain preferentially wants to eat. But choose quality, slow release carbohydrates, so called low glycemic index. And if we can put those in, oh, something's just post up here, it's just come. So if we can choose the slow release carbs, it's going to be better for our energy. And then that's obviously going to be better for our mood. Because if you get tired mid-afternoon, which we naturally do, think of siestas, our body naturally wants to have a sleep in the afternoon. If you've had whole grain bread for lunch, or you've had some legumes or lentils in your lunch, that's going to give much slower release of carbohydrate over your whole afternoon. And that's going to be much better than getting to mid-afternoon and thinking, oh, can't get any further. What am I going to get for that pick-me-up? And grabbing the lollies to eat as you go to try and get through the afternoon. So make sure you get those complex carbs in. And even in the afternoon, if you feel like something to eat like that, rather than grabbing the biscuit, make yourself a piece of toast and put on your favorite 100% peanut butter spread or an almond butter spread. Or what I love, I'll grab a handful of nuts, but I am a sweet tooth, so I'll get some dried fruit to go with it. And at one of the local farmers markets, one down in Mount Alexander Secondary College, where I go sometimes, there's a lady there and she has beautiful Victorian grown apricots and peaches in summer, but the dried ones in winter, and they are the best. And if I just want something sweet and tasty, then that's what I absolutely go for. Just a couple of those and they'll get me through. Has anyone got any more questions? Come on, throw me a few questions, guys. What have you got there? Come on, I'm sure you can think of some questions to throw out to me. Protein. We need protein, as we've said, for our hormones, but let's think about some plant proteins as well as our animal proteins. Legumes, lentils, tofu, which also is soy milks as well, nuts and seeds. But then also, if we're just wanting to have animal products, remember fish and omega-3. Great protein, but omega-3 is also great for our brain and for our mental health. So omega-3s are involved in the neurological function also and the vascular function of our brain. So important for our mood. And there's a few studies that are also looking at omega-3 benefit in terms of dementia and Alzheimer's. So definitely want to get your fish in. Kangaroo meat also has a little bit of omega-3. So if you want to look for a meat that's got omega-3, that's the way to go if you're not into seafood. Or plant-based omega-3, flax seeds and a bit in walnuts. But the chemical composition of omega-3 in plant products is slightly different to that in animal, so you don't absorb it as well. So animal products definitely have an advantage for your omega-3. If we're coming back to the protein note, eggs. How brilliant are eggs? They're economical to buy. They're so quick to do. They can be breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. Hey, hard-boiled egg or 2 eggs whipped up in the microwave makes a perfect snack. In fact, the Hawthorn footy guys perfected showing me how to do poached eggs in the microwave. So easy to do, and I think eggs have got a bit of vitamin D as well. And that's a good one to move on to vitamin D. Vitamin D is the sunshine vitamin. Not a lot of sunshine when I'm looking outside today and over winter time. You can't get much of it from your food. Sardines, mackerel, those oily fish have a little bit. Eggs a little bit in the yolk. Sometimes it's added to different foods, but really you need to get it mostly from the sunshine. So that's where getting outdoors and getting going for your walks, which are part of obviously being healthy, really important for your mood to get the sunshine into your eyes, obviously still following safety around skin cancer, and that's important for your eyes and wearing your sunglasses. But it's really important for our mood and production of our hormones and our happy hormones. We need to have the vitamin D. So a little bit in your food, but mostly from getting a bit of the outdoors. And obviously outdoors, exercise and movement is so important for producing those happy hormones, those endorphins I talked about before. So we really need to make sure we do that. Let's have a look what else we have here. Fats and oils. People often ask me about fats and oils. Oh, and I've got a question here about, okay, I'll get to the celiac disease one and the rolled oats and things in just a minute. I just wanted to chat about fats and oils though first. Really important to use fresh oils when cooking. So don't buy massive tins and tubs and things that you're not going to get through in longer than about 4 months. So about 4 months, once it's open, is when you need to be using it. Because once it's open, the oxygen can get in, oxidizes, and it can break down the fats and make them go rancid. You can often taste if you've got old nuts or seeds or oils, they don't taste good. When they become rancid, they're also not good for us. Also, don't reuse oils in cooking. So when oils are heated, they start to form polar compounds, which are actually not good for our health. So we want to make sure that we're using oils that naturally protect the oil. So extra virgin olive oil has vitamin E and lots of antioxidants in it that actually protect the oil so that when we heat it, it doesn't break down and form those bad polar compounds. Coconut oil people often ask me about. And coconut oil is very stable, so that's good. It won't form those bad polar compounds, but it doesn't have the benefit of the antioxidants, and it can increase your cholesterol. So I'm suggesting use extra virgin olive for the majority of your cooking. You might want to use things like avocado oils or macadamia nut oils and things as dressings, but I wouldn't be using blended vegetable oils. They're not good in terms of our overall health, our gut health, inflammation, and that all comes back to affecting our mood. Any advice for people with celiac disease? Yes. If you genuinely have celiac disease and you've been tested to show that you have it, then you have to avoid all gluten. And unfortunately, that does cut out a fair few foods. So anything with wheat and oats in it and rye are all cut out. Making sure then that you don't just think something says gluten-free that makes it healthy. If it's a gluten-free cake or biscuit, it's probably still got lots of oils and fats. And if they're commercially made, they're probably poor quality and probably still got lots of sugar. So it doesn't mean just because it says gluten-free, you can eat as much of it as you like. If you think that you might get bloated and you think, oh, I'll remove gluten from my diet, please first check, is it really gluten intolerance, or is it a wheat intolerance, or maybe fructans, which are part of wheat and part of the FODMAP thing. And that's a whole other issue that you probably need to see a dietitian about, read up about it on the Monash FODMAP website. But only go gluten-free if you have celiac disease. And you really do have to look after your gut. So still try and feed it lots of grains that you can have, so gluten-free type grains, and seeds, so things like chia seeds, quinoa, nuts in there, sesame seeds, poppy seeds, all of those things to still make sure you get enough fiber to feed your gut bacteria. Remembering that all fruits and vegetables are gluten-free, enough protein so that your gut is repaired and looked after, so all your animal products are not going to have gluten in them. Gluten is a protein that is found in some grains. The other thing with celiac disease, I would suggest, is really trying to look at the things like the meditation and the relaxation to help look after your gut even more, because obviously your gut is more susceptible to being inflamed. Also, olive oil has a natural anti-inflammatory, there's a plane flying over, called oleocanthal, and that's only found in extra virgin olive oil, and it has been shown to reduce inflammation. So that's a good reason to go quite liberal on your olive oil to help look after your gut. Rolled oats or steel cut, which are better for your gut? I just think if you're having a whole rolled oat, that is going to be the best thing for you to do. So I'm not so fussed whether it's steel cut or whether it's just a whole rolled oat. Steel cut at the moment can still be quite expensive. So as long as you're including rolled oats in your diet, that's probably the main thing that I would suggest that you do. And rolled oats are great to use on like if you've got stewed fruit in winter and you want to put some rolled oats on top, make your own sort of crumble, a great way to get in some extra fiber. Put them into pancakes. You can put them in if you're making your own bread. So many people are into making bread at the moment. I've even had a go. So you can put some of those on top or in your bread. Making your own muesli from rolled oats and adding them into things like homemade muffins, or making your own cookies by adding in rolled oats. So I think they're really important too. How much plant-based omega-3 would you need to consume as opposed to animal-sourced omega-3? Look, that's a really good question, and off the top of my head, I don't know. I would have to look that up. But because I think we also don't understand the absorption rate, and we know that it's less because it has to be changed to be able to be absorbed. So I would be guessing to say how much more, but I just think you need to know that we do need a bit more of the plant-based omega-3s than we do in terms of your animal source. You could probably look it up. The Heart Foundation would probably be a place that would have a good one on omega-3 and fact sheets, and I think they list how much omega-3 is in the different products and how much extra you need. I think from memory it's around a quarter more, but even then everyone's absorption rate of nutrients is very different, so even when we're picking that, it's only going to be a guess as to how much more you need. Great. Are there any good foods to help someone giving up a diet soft drink? Yeah, that's a hard one, isn't it? Because the artificial sweetener in the soft drinks still fits your taste buds to say sweet is coming, and it makes you still crave sweet foods. And it sends a message to the brain about sweet. And sweet sends a message to your brain saying, pleasure, give me more. And it sort of comes back to caveman days because they didn't have a lot of sweet things around, and so they really wanted more. So it's a hard one to give up sweet soft drinks. What I suggest you would do is to try and buy a soda water or a natural mineral water that's still going to give you the bubbles, and you might try and flavor it with something else. So putting even a strawberry on the side of the glass or some oranges on the side of the glass, which are sweet smelling, because sweet smell actually makes up an awful lot of your taste. If you think about a cold, you can't taste your food as much when you've got a cold because you can't smell it. So you need to, when you're trying to give up soft drink, you're used to a flavor and a taste. We somehow have to replicate that without all the sugar. So that's why I'm thinking put in some herbs, put something in the drink, but also put it on the edge, because the smell will be much more powerful to your taste than just putting it in the drink. You also might need to wean off. So you might need to be saying to yourself, pouring yourself just smaller glasses of it rather than going cold turkey. So instead of having a big glass like I've got of my water here and that you might have a soft drink, get a glass that's only this big and put some of that in, trying to have it less often. And remember that artificial sweetener can often give you bloating and pain in your gut because it's not absorbed. So it goes to your large intestine The gut bacteria there ferment it, break it down, and we're thinking that those compounds that it breaks it down to might not be that great for us. Another reason to not have too much artificial sweetener. And so they can give you bloating by producing that gas as well. And too much can also give you diarrhea. So my suggestion, if you're trying to get rid of diet soft drink, try and have more, even just plain water, but maybe try and just flavor your others with a bit more. Also, kombucha is not a bad try, because kombucha has fermented out the sugar, so there's not much in there, and it's got usually a slightly more natural sweetener. It's got benefits of a few gut bacteria, so that might be an option. Milk is also good. So having maybe like a milk coffee or a latte, or just a glass of milk. Milk, you might just flavor it slightly, because at least from milk you're getting protein and calcium and phosphorus and lots of good things that are great for your body as well. So I hope that answers the question on the soft drink. Let me see if I've just missed anyone else's here before I finish off. No, don't think I have there. And just for children on the soft drink one, it's not something to have in the house all the time. It really just have soft drink as a now and again. And as I said, always try and have it in small glasses, because otherwise you're going to have an awful lot of it. Same goes with fruit juice. Fruit juice has got about 10% sugar, so it's got about the same amount of sugar as soft drink, believe it or not. The only thing is that it does have a little bit of vitamins and minerals from, like vitamin C from the fruit, but it would be much better to drink water and eat fruit. So try and avoid that a bit where you can. The last bit I want to talk to you about is setting yourself up for success. So when I was writing my book, I was thinking about all the information and the technical information I wanted to put in there. And I've tried to do it like a story. But my most important thing was my third section, which is about how do I put this all into practice? How do I make it happen? So what I get you to think about is strategies to make sure it can happen for you at home. So say it is the soft drink. Don't have it on your weekly shopping list. But number one, have a shopping list. Actually write a shopping list so you buy the foods you want to buy and you don't get distracted by the specials and the things at the end of the aisles. And you come home with lots of those fresh fruit and vegetables, the whole grain cereals, the nuts, the seeds, the oats, all of those things. Because if you haven't written your shopping list, then how in the world are you actually going to be able to make it happen the way you want it to happen? So what I want you to do is start with a shopping list. If you don't want to go to the shops, which, if you're living in a lockdown postcode like I am at the moment, you might not want to go too often, you can set up a shop online. Or if you're busy, and you can use the same shopping list as a base and just change it each time. Also spread the load. Whether it be cooking or shopping, don't be the only person in the household to be doing it, because otherwise it isn't going to happen. And you're going to find you're dialing up for takeaway, or you're going out to get takeaway, or you're just making toast for dinner. So spread the load so that it's not just you. Also make cooking fun. Cook things you like to eat. Don't cook boring things. Healthy food, as we've talked about today, can taste great. So you make your curries and you put a bit more veggies in, a bit less meat, but it still can be tasty. I'm going to make my pancakes, but I'm going to serve them with lots of fruit on top and a dollop of yogurt, maybe rather than just sprinkling sugar and maple syrup. My porridge I'm going to make delicious with adding cinnamon and some allspice and banana on top. My homemade soup is going to come with fresh crusty bread, and make sure you're not going to cook it if you don't, or eat it if you don't like it. And make that cooking fun. Have some music on, get other people in the house to help. When you can, have friends over so you can have a soup cooking day or a bread making day, or swap. My best friend and I, she's often baking cakes or fresh. She delivered me a loaf of fresh sourdough bread last night, which went with my homemade soup. So swapping things and that can be fun. Or someone might be great at making pasta sauce, or You might have pickled a whole lot of onions or vegetables. Share them if it's too many and do some swapping around. The other thing is to plan ahead a bit. You know, at times when you've got all the family birthdays coming up or Christmas, whatever, you're going to have lots of different functions happening at once. Then plan a bit. Think about, what am I going to eat when I get there? I'm going to look at all those desserts that are there, and I'm just going to pick the one that I really enjoy. You don't need to have all of them. It's not the last time you can ever choose it. So just having the one you want and really mindfully eating with awareness like we talked before. And that way you don't feel like you're missing out, but you're planning a bit, particularly if you've got a few events in a row like happens at Christmas. Eating till you're comfortable, not till you're full to here. By enjoying food, you don't have to be so full that you can't move to enjoy it. And that all comes back to our mood. If we feel bad about what we've done, or we've eaten so we can't move, then that's obviously going to negatively impact on our mood. So enjoy your food, but pick what you want and eat until you're comfortable. So in terms of setting yourself up for success, you've got your shopping list, you've got your stock of food. Make it easy by getting people to help out. Make it easy by using a combination of fresh, frozen and canned fruit and vegetables. Frozen is still as nourishing as fresh. In fact, sometimes more nourishing because they've been snap frozen. They've been sitting at the bottom of your crisper until they're wilting to the end. And eat with awareness and without guilt, because all of these things are going to be helping, obviously, with our mood. If you're looking for more nutrition information, the Dietitians Association of Australia, or it's now called Dietitians Australia, they have some sections on there where you can get some good information. Nutrition Australia do as well. The Heart Foundation, Sports Dietitians Australia, if you're into sport, have a whole lot of fact sheets on there about what to eat when. You can look at all different sports for junior athletes and older athletes as well. I happen to be a voluntary role as president of Sports Dietitians Australia, so there's lots of good information out there on their websites. If you're following people on social media about food, please make sure they have some qualifications. So look for accredited practicing dietitians if they're from Australia. If they're from the US, or if they're from England, they need to be registered dietitians. They're the people who are obviously going to have the nutrition qualifications. If it says nutritionist, just check. They may have a 3-year degree, but they also could be anyone just calling themselves a nutritionist. So just want to check on that. I'd love you to connect with me. So Facebook, Simone Austin Dietitian. Instagram is at Simone_Austin. And I think I was on 4,999 followers just before I came on this. So I need someone to click me over to the 5,000. Obviously, like book which you can get from Moreland City Libraries, or you can also get it online. It's called Eat Like an Athlete, but it is very much about any of us using the strategies that athletes do to make us perform at our best. We don't need to be the athletes, but we can still use nutrition as the tool to make us be at our best. And I talk through different strategies. Athletes I've worked with journey along, working 25 years in that space. Do a bit of Twitter, but not so much. On my website, there's some blogs, and we're going to have a handout that links you through to all of those areas. Also to a recipe I did on some strawberry and oat muffins, because I do a bit of recipe development. They might be a great one to cook for yourself if you're in lockdown at the moment. Pop them in the freezer for that time when you do want the sweet treat and you're really in that mood for a sweet food. I've got plenty of recipes on my website as well, so feel free to have a go, connect with me, tell me what you've cooked, and feel free to continue to ask questions. I'll be checking the Moreland Library Instagram page, Facebook page over the next week, so I can continue to answer your questions, or you can actually contact me direct. Thanks everyone for tuning in today. Remember, food certainly can help your mood. Choosing a nourishing diet is going to make you feel very much at your best. I'm Simone Austin, and thank you very much for joining me on our live today. The link is up there in the chat box if any of you want to see it. Thanks everyone. Bye. Have a fabulous day.